And I know this is going to sound odd for some people. I found out in this job that apparently it's not normal to go and hang out at cemeteries around the world. No?
Okay.
Well, here in Copenhagen, the cemeteries are also considered green areas. So it's also space for the local people.
I'll bet you didn't see that one coming. Which cemetery should you hang out with when you're traveling in and around Copenhagen? That's today's guest, Rikke Bisgaard-Svensen. She is the perfect person to have here today because when it comes to Copenhagen, Denmark expertise, Rikke has both sides covered. She spent years traveling the world as a, quote, travel addict before founding the Copenhagen Free Walking Tours 13 years ago. She actually lives in the city's authentic neighborhoods rather than just the tourist areas and has built her recommendations from both her professional expertise as a guide showing the city to thousands of travelers and as a genuine local just living her daily life. Her insights come from someone who knows the city inside and out, personally and professionally, and you get to take advantage of that by hearing some of those local experiences you can have in this amazing city. You're going to walk away with a list of 10 incredible hidden gems in Copenhagen that most tourists never find, which neighborhoods to stay in for an authentic experience, how to avoid tourist traps while still seeing the must-see spots, and of course, we're going to talk about the secret behind why Denmark consistently ranks as one of the world's happiest countries. I had to ask her about that and loads more happening in this episode right now. So buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. And my goal with these destination-themed episodes is to give you a resource that you can tap into, whether you're traveling to a city like Copenhagen in the near future, or perhaps down the road, you'll have something to bookmark and come back to so you can find some of those lesser-known places. It's very easy to just Google a city and find out those main things to do. But my goal with any of the destination episodes is to really help you get under the skin of a place by going hyper-local. And that's what we have for you today. So you're going to hear a lot of the questions that I would ask if I was just on the ground in a city doing a free walking tour, which, by the way, is a great introduction to any city that offers them. And you can find Rikke's free walking tours over at Copenhagen Free Walking Tours.dk. You can bookmark that for your next trip to Copenhagen. Maybe you'll even get a tour right from her. Okay, we're going to dive in. Stick around on the back end, by the way. I will give you a fun fact that may surprise you about this city. And I think this is related to the geography of Denmark. That's my hunch anyway. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that one. You won't believe this one. And lastly, don't forget we have a newsletter over at zerototravel.com/newsletter where you can sign up for a free weekly newsletter with all sorts of travel tips, some fun links from around the web, more destination/bucket list fodder, some musings, and so on. You can sign up over there for free. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Rikke. Thanks for listening, and I will see you on the other side, my friend. Cheers. Rikke Bisgaard-Svensen, welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
Thank you so much.
I was close, right?
Yeah, you were. Close enough.
Okay. I try to, think, okay, well, I'm Norwegian, Denmark is our friendly neighbor, and I think I've got this. But nope, not this time. The quote-unquote professional podcaster is still getting guest names wrong. So anyway, welcome to the show. Hard to believe you haven't been here, but excited to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm curious to have this conversation.
Me too. Oh, well, I mean, the last time I was in Denmark, we're going to focus on Copenhagen today, which is your specialty, of course. I was at Legoland.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
We did the road trip through Denmark to get to Legoland with the kids. It was fun. And I ended up in Copenhagen way back on my first backpacking trip. Well, that's a whole other story. There was a Danish girl that brought me there and blah, blah, blah. You Scandinavians are apparently very good at bringing your love interest back to your home country, despite the weather and some. Well done. But anyway, I had great memories of my time there. It's been too long since I've been back. And so I thought, well, this will be a great opportunity because you have this Copenhagen Free Walking Tours company, which we'll link up to. Encourage people to check that out if they're in town. We're going to give you 10 off the beaten track recommendations today for Copenhagen, plus a whole bunch of bonus mentions, I think. You've been doing this tour company for I looked it up, it's been 12 years or something now. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
Before we get into the recommendations, I wanted to learn a little bit more about your travels personally, because you said in your bio on your website, this travel addict seems to have developed a pattern. She only stays in Denmark until she has saved up enough money to go traveling again. So first of all, tell me about some of your travels and what keeps bringing you back to Denmark. You could have created another life somewhere in Sri Lanka or somewhere else,
Yeah, I mean, right now the sun sounds good. Yeah, no, so basically when I was in my 20s, the time to start some sort of education and start your adult life, I couldn't really figure out which direction to go, education-wise. And, I'm pretty spoiled for choices living in Denmark. All the educations are for free, so I could just choose what I wanted, but there was none of it that really felt right. So I was like, okay, let's just go traveling a little bit. I came back, worked a little bit, went traveling again. So I sort of did that during my 20s, just sort of pop back and forth. I spent some time in Australia. I was there a couple of times trying to see as much as possible, which is impossible because Australia is too big to see it all. Spent some time in Malawi in Africa and South Africa as well. I traveled Southeast Asia as well. So I did some bigger trips, and I always came back to here because, friends and family, and it is my home. And even though the weather is pretty gray for most of the year, I do love it here. I think Copenhagen is a great city to be in. So after one of my trips, I joined couch surfing, which I'm sure you remember. It was pretty big back then. I think it still exists, but I'm not sure how much it's being used these days. So I used that here in Copenhagen. I had people come over all the time. I showed them around just for fun. And then I saw an ad in the paper for a company looking for tour guides. And I mean, an ad in the paper will tell you how long ago it is. So I applied to become a tour guide with this new concept, Free Walking Tours. And I got the job and I got started, and I did a full season. And then when we're heading into the second low season, the company I was working for, they decided that they were going to shut down for winter because Copenhagen wasn't really a big profit destination. So they were just we'll close down over the winter and we'll start again for high season. And they gave us a 5 days notice before shutting down. And all of us tour guides, we were like, okay, what are we going to do? And we started our own thing. Now, it was supposed to be a temporary thing.
Ha ha.
Yeah, exactly. It was let's just do this for fun for a while. But yeah, here we are, 13 years later.
Wow. Congratulations. Yeah, when you were living the lifestyle of were you just coming back and doing sort of random jobs, whatever could get you kind of money for the next trip? Was that the sort of lifestyle?
I was actually pretty lucky because I was working with kids in kindergartens and nurseries.
Yeah.
And every time I came back, they wanted me to work with them again.
Oh, cool. Yeah, they always have a need for that, I guess. So
yeah, exactly. So without having anything guaranteed, I just found that whenever I came back, I gave them a call and they were like, yeah, come on in. You can help us out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That worked out great for the lifestyle really you were living then. And getting involved with the tour company, I guess at that point you were in love with travel. And so applying for that, I'm guessing, was just a part of hey, I really like being around other travelers. I like this aspect of it or this idea of it. Was it, how did you feel when you started out and did that first guiding season? I have found like after traveling a bunch and then people come to visit me in a place where I lived, that there is a lot of joy in like giving them a travel experience in a place that you live and know. And it's like, oh, I had so many nice people do that for me on the road. Like now it's my chance to do that for somebody else. Was it a bit of that?
Yeah, I think it was just a mix of like the pride for Copenhagen and showing that off, but also the longing for other cultures and people from around the world. So it's just really nice, like the periods where I couldn't go out traveling, people would come to me and I would hang out with them and get their stories and so on. So yeah, that was definitely part of the attraction.
Okay, yeah. So you you get your fix personally. Like I'm not traveling now, but I'm getting to be around travelers. So I get that travel vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially back then when it was just for fun and just like a side thing and so on. Where of course now it's a bit more professional because I also need this as my job.
Yeah. It's a totally different thing to be a tour guide like you were in the beginning and just it's already set up and they're like, here you go. And here's what you need to learn and take these people to like, okay, now you're an entrepreneur trying to figure this out. How was that journey for you trying to figure out how to be a business owner and like step into that role of entrepreneurship? Was that something you ever saw yourself doing? Was it just sort of like out of necessity?
Yeah, like honestly, like had you asked me before I started this if I would ever own a business, I would have been like, nah. I had like no interest in owning a business. I had didn't know anyone owning businesses and so on. So it's just not something that I ever thought about. But because we're left in that situation where we didn't really have a job and we wanted to continue, so there was a couple of us who were like, let's just get together and start this up. So I think for me, it was very slow sort of transition from getting into starting the business with other people to eventually the position where I am now, where I am the founder and co-owner of the company. Back then, I wouldn't have started it alone. Like I needed those other people to be there with me. And for many years, we did run it as like a collective. So it was not like, it was like everyone who was a tour guide was also a boss. So we all had a say and we all had like our opinions and so on.
Sounds very Scandinavian.
Yeah, very, right? It was very much, we're all equal. We all love each other. We all like have a right to be heard. But of course, like over the years, as we grew the company, there was just too many of us. And eventually we started sort of narrowing it down a little bit. And now we are 3 owners of the company.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, congratulations. You've obviously done something, right? You're still going. We've talked about janteloven on this show, jantelova. It's like, you can explain what it is because I think it originated in Denmark. And the way you described the company in the beginning sounds very much like within the jantelova kind of vibe, which again, you can explain that if people are hearing that term for the first time. I would love for you to give some context around that as a cultural thing. And I would like to hear a little bit more of like, is that like a mindset you had to personally break out of to like develop further?
Yeah, I think so. Because of course, back then it was very much like, we're all equal. No one is deciding more than anyone else. And it was something that like this role that I have now was something that I had to grow into. And of course, I've learned so much over the years and been able to take more and more responsibilities. So I think it has been like a slow process of like adjusting to it, because the jantelov that you're mentioning is very much about no one is more than anyone else. We're all equal. Don't think that you're more than anyone else. It's like a very Scandinavian thing of like keeping each other down, but not like pushing them down, but just keeping us on the same level. So no one is like up here and the rest are down here.
Yeah, right. It's tricky, yeah, because, my kids are growing up in Scandinavian culture, and I think about this a lot, and I wonder, I see the value in both, right? I see the value in like, there's like sort of like a humbleness and with that concept, and the ability to like, yeah, we're all like human. We all put our pants on one leg at a time type of thing. That's a good thing. But then also people excel at certain different things, and it should be okay to stand out and be praised for like things that you're doing well, because everybody does different things well. And that's okay. That's what makes us so it's like the individualistic sort of mentality that I come from in the US, which is a very individualistic society. I do see a lot of value on both sides. And I don't think going extreme one way or the other is a good, maybe like there's somewhere in the middle is where to be.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a good mix of like the whole American, you can like be what you want to be and follow your dreams and so on. And then the Scandinavian, okay, let's all take care of each other sort of mentality. It's a good mix of both. But I think there is a shift. It seems like people, they are becoming more and more confident with like showing who they are and like standing out a little bit more. I guess also with like social media being so big, you can always find someone who will support you and put you down, and you can find someone who's doing the same thing as you. So I think there's like also a support in like the whole social media game we're in right now.
How would you describe Copenhagen now, like as it is right now? And this is like one of those things that's obvious on the surface, I think, when you think about like a city, whether it's your hometown or someplace you've lived or visited or whatever, because you see like physical structures that are still there and it all looks the same. I think our brains can tend to think like it's the same place, but it's not, because it's evolved and changed. And so, and now tourism is very popular, exploding in Scandinavia. I don't know what you've seen, but it seems to be that way here in Norway. You know, if you were going to describe like Copenhagen, not historically, but as it is today, how would you describe the city?
Yeah, so I think Copenhagen over the last many years have become a little bit more of obviously it's not a big city, but it's become bigger because there are more and more people from around the world living in Copenhagen. So it's becoming more of a, what do you call it, like a metropolitan city, like a capital city, where before it was probably more like a small town. There's not a lot of people living in Copenhagen. It's a very small inner city. People come in there for travels and for work and so on. So, for example, if you walk around on a Sunday morning, the city is very, very quiet. There's not a lot of people out. But then if you go around on like Friday afternoon when people are off from work, you will see a lot of people in the city. I think the city has also really changed because of, all the hype that we've gotten around the world. We've had a couple of really big TV shows make it big around the world, like The Bridge and The Killing and Borgen as well. The foodie scene has definitely attracted a lot of people to Copenhagen. Foodie scene has really grown since Noma started in 2003. Noma is one of the best restaurants in the world, and they're still here in Copenhagen, although they are shutting down right now and reopening again. So they have attracted a lot of people. The whole hygge thing has also attracted a lot of people, like this comfort word that Danes, they tend to use all the time, of like being cozy at home with your candles and your little blanket and a hot cup of chocolate and so on. This feeling that has always been a very Danish thing has been spreading to around the world. Nowadays, when you mention this word, people have heard it, even though they come from other places. The metro expanded in 2019. That has also made the city feel bigger, because now the inner city of Copenhagen is growing to be bigger and bigger and bigger, because it's easier to get from A to B on the metro. So I think the city has really definitely changed a lot from what it was in the past, even though the old buildings are still standing and it looks the same.
It's exciting to think that, you know, anytime you visit a city, it's that way in that moment of time, you know, and you get the chance to experience it in that moment of time. And it won't really ever be the same again. Like, people will come, they'll go. It's always changing. And that's always an exciting thing about traveling, or like, whether it's your first time there or like your 50th time, knowing like you're in a place that's sort of ever evolving. It's funny you brought up the hygge thing. We call it kuseli here in Norway, with the same sort of thing. I have questions about that and like some other sort of cultural things. And then, you know, of course, we're going to talk about like the happiest people in the world thing, because how can we not talk about that? But since we're talking about the wonders of Copenhagen right now, let's give people like an awesome list of things to do. And I love that, you know, even when we were getting on this call right before we started recording, you're like, yeah, I have this like list. I had to sort of drill it down a little bit, but you said you were talking to your colleagues, and, you know, so this is like very much crowdsourced from people from your company that like are locals that know the city very well. So I just kind of want to like put that out there. This list is going to be legit and awesome, off the beaten track Copenhagen. And then even if there's some sort of like must-see destinations in there, my request was like, you know, like we could say like Tivoli Gardens. I don't know if it's like on your list, but it's like, you know, it's something that's kuseli.
Yeah.
I was like the first place, I think the gal I was with at the time when I was traveling took me. If you're going to a place like that, like, how do you do it in a way that's unique, or maybe not as sort of like mass tourism type of activities? And I think that's like the general vibe. So anyway, if you want to give us a little more context in how you put together this list, and then we can kind of like start going through some of these and learning about them, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so basically, although like I'm sort of almost the face of the company and I'm in charge of many things and so on, we still have the guides and we still need the guides to run this organization. So obviously when I got in touch with you or you got in touch with me, I wrote out to the team asking what their favorite like hidden gems were for Copenhagen. And obviously like we got a team of almost 20 guides now. So that was a lot of suggestions. So I had to really sort of like look into it and also choose the ones that I felt like was the most important ones. So I tried to like find a couple of different things, like both places you can go to in this inner city. There's a couple of things that are like slightly outside Copenhagen, and then of course the food recommendations as well.
All right,
Yeah,
you kick it off. I'm not sure where you want to go with this, but give us one.
yeah.
Give us your first one.
The first one I thought of was actually something that's not necessarily a Copenhagen thing. It's a greater Copenhagen thing. And it's this Danish artist called Thomas Dambo. And Thomas Dambo, he's a recycling artist. So he's basically taking a lot of rubbish and recycling it and making it into art. And one of his first projects was the Six Forgotten Giants of Copenhagen. And it's basically these massive trolls that he's built in some of the suburbs of Copenhagen. And there's actually one in the inner city as well, in the Free State Christiania. And he's made this map where people can localize approximately where the trolls are, but you sort of have to go hunting for them and try and find out exactly where they are. So what a lot of people do is they rent a bike and they go biking around the suburbs of Copenhagen, which is something that I really like because I live in the suburbs of Copenhagen. I don't live in the inner city. And I love when people, they don't really congest in the inner city and they also come out and see some of the other things we have to offer. So I think that's a really nice way of getting out there, exploring something on the bikes and seeing the bicycle highways and going around in a more relaxed setting than walking around the inner city where all the tour buses and boats and tour groups and so on are located.
That is right up my alley, doing something like that. Yeah. Well, the idea of like you're kind of looking around for something, so you have a little bit of a mission, but it's not like super intense and you just get to ride a bike around and check out neighborhoods that you wouldn't normally be in. That sounds awesome. I love that. So, I mean, where would people get started with that? Would they just go to this guy's website?
Yeah. Go
Okay.
to the website and find the maps. And actually, even if you're not in Copenhagen, he does actually have trolls all around the world now. We're talking like US, Asia, Australia, all around. I don't know if there's any up in Norway, but he's got these trolls all around. But it started with these 6 Forgotten Giants in the greater Copenhagen area.
Okay, great. If you could do us a favor after we're done chatting, just send us some of the links of these sites you mentioned so we don't lose track of them and we can make sure everybody gets them. Okay, cool. Kicking it off with a bang. Amazing.
Yes, no.
I'm excited to hear the rest.
Another one is actually also another trip that you can do from Copenhagen. And I know you mentioned Tivoli a couple of times, and I absolutely love Tivoli. I think it's beautiful, and I think you definitely go and check out Tivoli. Even though it is an amusement park, it is very different than other amusement parks, and it's right in the city center, so you can't really miss it. So, of course, I didn't put that on the list of hidden gems because it's not really that hidden, although it is a gem. What I put on my list instead is Bakken, and Bakken is the oldest amusement park in the world. Now, Bakken is just north of Copenhagen, so it's just a little bit of a trip. It's like 20, 30 minutes on a train, and then you're out in this massive deer park where there's like this free-range deer roaming around. And in the middle of this deer park, there is Bakken, which is the amusement park, which is also just an amazing place to go and visit.
Wow. Okay. So wait, when you say deer, because that's the Norwegian word for animals, and we call the deer park is like a zoo with various different animals. Do you mean actual deer, like DEER, like?
Yeah, like the Bambi.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure because my head started going Norwegian for a minute.
Yes, yeah, I understand what you mean. Yeah, but no, back in the days, like the king wanted this whole ground to be his private hunting grounds. So he had this massive area. I think we're talking like more than 1,000 hectares, sort of fenced off, and lots of deer in there, so he could go hunting. But now it's an open park, and it's actually on the UNESCO World Heritage site as well. So it is really a lovely place to go and check out.
Amazing. Okay, so we can go to the oldest amusement park in the world.
Yeah, dating back to the 1500s.
You're crushing this list.
Just getting started.
What's next?
All right, let's get back into the inner city, because the next thing I've gotten on is a place called Nyboder. And Nyboder, I know it's a little bit of a Danish word, it's a little bit hard to say, but when they built it back in the 1600s, I don't think they really thought of foreigners coming here to say the name. Now, so this is an area built by King Christian IV, who was actually also the guy I was just mentioning who sealed off the deer park so you could go hunting there. So back in the 1600s, he wanted all the people working in the Navy, so all the sailors, he wanted them to be in one area so he could quickly wake them up if he needed them. So he basically built this massive area called Nyboder, which roughly translates into new houses, although the oldest one dates back to, I think it's like 1631 or something like that. And he had all of these houses built, and some of them date back to the 1600s, some of them dates to the 1700s, some of them dates to the 1800s, but it was basically made for the Navy back in the days. And still to this day, people are living there, and it's still owned by the Danish military. So the people living there are still active in the military. And the reason why I'm mentioning this area is because it's just a gorgeous area. It's these really low yellow houses, so it really feels like stepping back into the 1600s. And it's just a really nice atmosphere of walking around there. All the street names in this area are named, or most of them are named after animals. So there's like Dolphin Street and Duck Street, and sort of like these quirky little street names. It's an area that is very central in Copenhagen, but it's not an area where a lot of people, they go to explore. You might have seen this area. I don't know if you remember, there was a movie called The Danish Girl.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
It was about the first ever transgender operation, which was a Danish woman.
Okay.
Yeah. And at one point, this Danish girl, she's walking through Nyboder, and she's really tall. So it just looks like these houses are just tiny. So it is one of these areas where if you want to film something that's supposed to look like it was back in the days, you can go there.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, it's very cute.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah. Now, another thing I put on my list is, and I know this is going to sound odd for some people, I found out in this job that apparently it's not normal to go and hang out at cemeteries around the world. No?
Okay.
Well, here in Copenhagen, the cemeteries are also considered green areas, so it's also space for the local people. So we've got this cemetery in Nørrebro, and Nørrebro is my favorite neighborhood in Copenhagen. It's like the most multicultural area. You got people.
How do you spell that?
So it's N-Ø, the Danish O with the line through, R-R-E-B-R-O. So Nørrebro.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got the bros around Copenhagen. Østerbro, Nørrebro, Vesterbro. That's what we're surrounded by. So in Nørrebro, we've got this cemetery called the Assistance Cemetery, which is basically because when Copenhagen was still a fortification city, there was not enough space for all the burial grounds. So they moved it outside the city center. So it became the Assistance Cemetery. Now, part of this cemetery dates all the way back to the 1700s, because there was a plague here in 1711. They had to build an extra cemetery. So some of the graves out there are pretty old, which also means that people are not necessarily there to mourn the dead because no one really knows them anymore. So there's a lot of green spaces there where you will literally see people going tanning there in the summer, topless people. You'll see people sitting there with their laptops just working. So it's just like a chill hangout place in the city center. Now, it's also known for some famous people being buried out there, like Hans Christian Andersen, who wrote The Little Mermaid, and the physicist Niels Bohr, he was buried out there as well. And also back in the 50s and 60s, there was quite a few American jazz musicians who moved to Copenhagen because they were not allowed to play in the States. So they came on over here, and some of them are buried there as well. So it's a really interesting cemetery to go and check out. And I think visiting a cemetery also tells you a lot about the place where you are. So that's another place I would recommend going to.
All right, that you're officially the first guest who said a cemetery is a cool, chill space to hang out.
Someone's got to do it, right?
No, I love it. I mean, and that kind of insight is why we have you here. Just kind of like, oh, this is a green space. Locals actually hang out here. Before we move on, just a quick question on that. Like, if people are going to go and check out this cemetery or another one and just find a cool, chill space to hang out. Is there like etiquette? Like, don't sit on the gravestones, or like, how should one behave when hanging out in a cemetery socially?
Yeah. Yeah, I understand why you asked that question. So there's actually parts of the cemetery that are still an active cemetery. And there are signs in those areas saying, please be respectful in these areas because there are people here who are mourning. So it is sort of like you are sort of directed to the places where it's the really old sections, which is where you're more allowed to hang out. Now, obviously, no sitting on the tombstones and so on, but like the green areas that are in between are fine for hanging out.
Okay, cool. I love that the idea of like, I guess it's Danish, like this is green space. Does that say anything about the Danish relationship with death?
I'm guessing it does. I guess it is something that is like very present to us. Like we know that it's all coming for us, and we know that we have these cemeteries all around Denmark, so we all live close to them, and many people do use them as like spaces where they can, if not hang out, just walk through and so on. And Denmark is, at least if you live in one of the cities, it's very walkable. It's so flat that people, they walk around everywhere, where I know some other places you'll take your car and you won't necessarily walk through the cemetery because you'll be driving around it. So I guess maybe it is a bit present here. I mean,
at Service Yet feels like, okay, we're cool with this. We're just going to hang out, and this is like a natural part of life, and there's green space here. So we're here now. They were here. They're not here. Let's just hang out. I don't know. It's a kind of an interesting dynamic if you think about it. But again, maybe I'm overthinking it,
Yeah, well, I mean, I know the local people living in that neighborhood. In fact, if you take a look at a map, you can very clearly spot, if you look at this neighborhood, you can very clearly spot where the cemetery is, because it's the only big green part. But I know the local people living there, it's a very young environment. So a lot of people are living there when they like start having kids and so on. And I know people, they will go through the cemetery and look at all the stones and select names from there.
Really? That's pretty cool. All right. So if you're hearing noises late at night in the cemetery, run towards them.
Yeah.
Because it's probably a bunch of locals hanging out. You're going to have a great time. Okay.
No, they're close to that nice.
All right. What else you got?
The next two things I have are some more, not like classic tourist sites, but they're statues. So in that term, a little bit more classic. But of course, I've chosen some that you don't necessarily find on your own when you're just walking around the inner city of Copenhagen. So one is located pretty much right at the town hall square, which is like the center of Copenhagen. And the statue that I'm referring to is a statue called the Weather Ladies or the Weather Girls. And they are a little bit hidden because they're at the top of a building. So people don't necessarily see them unless they look up. Now, these weather girls, they date back to 1936 when they were first installed. And you have to imagine these two golden ladies where one of them is sitting on a bike and the other one is holding an umbrella. Now, these ladies, they used to be able to move. And whenever it was a sunny day, the lady on a bike would come out and be in front of the building. And when it was a raining day, the lady with the umbrella would come out and be in front of the building. Unfortunately, the mechanics stopped working in the 1990s, and they've been stuck for 30 years. Until October this year. They finally fixed up the ladies, yeah. They've fixed them up completely. They have been brushed up, got a little bit of a new gold leaf covering, and they fixed the mechanics. So now they're working again. So now whenever you're standing on Town Hall Square and you're in doubt, is it raining? Is it sunny? I'm not really sure. You look up at the Weather Girls and they will tell you.
Nice.
Yeah.
That beats any app.
Yeah, doesn't it?
And
underneath them, there's a thermometer as well.
I love it. Yeah, put the phone down. Just look up at the Weather Girls. They'll let you know what's coming. That's great.
They'll tell you. Yeah. And obviously the thermometer underneath, it goes up to only 30 degrees and down to minus 20 because, I mean, it is Copenhagen and the thermometer dates back to the 1930s. We didn't really need anything above 30 back then.
Sad commentary on today's climate. But
yeah, it is definitely changing.
Yeah, if you needed a physical representation of how much things have changed, you can refer to that thermometer. I mean, all right, we're halfway there.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even gotten to any of the bonus recommendations yet. But
No, oh my God.
This is a killer list.
It's going to get too long.
All right. We'll keep it tight because there is plenty to do. I think, and I guess the average person is mostly there probably for a handful of days, but this is giving you plenty of reasons to stick around.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing more and more people who are staying for like 5 days to a week, which is great because then they have time to do all of these things.
Yeah. Since we're halfway through, I mean, we could just pause there and ask a question. Where should people stay? If you wanted to do like a week in Copenhagen, is there a neighborhood you recommend? Yeah, because a hotel after like a week starts to get a bit expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, so, Copenhagen is so small that it's not really divided into different areas. Like the inner city is the inner city, and there's not really any different sections of the inner city. Of course, there is the bros that I was referring to before, Nørrebro, Vesterbro, and Østerbro, which are like the surrounding neighborhoods. I think if you want like a feeling of being amongst the locals, that's what you want to go for. You want to go for one of the bro neighborhoods. Now, Vesterbro is definitely the area with the most hotels. So depending on where you are in Vesterbro, it might still feel a little bit inner city because half of Vesterbro is very close to the inner city. But of course, you can go further out and be in the more chilled neighborhood. Nørrebro, of course, is also really cool. There's not a lot of hotels out there, but there are a couple of hotels, and there is also a really great hostel out there. So if you are a budget traveler, definitely check out Sleep in Heaven Hostel, which is in Nørrebro. It's actually right next door to the cemetery I was just talking about.
Sleep in Heaven?
Yeah.
Great name.
It's very cute. They have all these sheeps everywhere. So it's basically like count sheeps and sleep in heaven.
I love that. All right. Checking that out right after this. Sleep in Heaven Hostel. Cool. All right, let's get into the second half of this.
Okay, so my next hidden gem is actually one of the things we include in one of our tours that we do here in Copenhagen. And we like to include this one because a lot of people, when they do their own research, of course, they find out about the Little Mermaid, and most people want to go and see the Little Mermaid. She's like the most visited tourist attraction in all of Copenhagen, so there's always a lot of people there. But there's actually a statue in town of a merman, which is a little bit more hidden, so people don't necessarily find this one.
I mean, the Zoolander thing just comes right. I mean, have you seen the movie?
No.
Oh, yeah, there's like a famous scene. Well, I mean, famous for any Zoolander fans. If you're not, apologize. I won't get into the premise, but anyway, he does this commercial, and he's a merman in the commercial, and his dad's like, You're prancing around like a mermaid. And he's like, merman. He's very offended. Anyway, it's classic. You'll have to look it up on YouTube or something. Or better yet, just watch the movie because it's hilarious. Anyway.
I guess I have to do that now.
All right. Where do we find the merman? Yeah, because then you can add the merman joke into your repertoire. Because like part of being a tour guide is making good jokes along the way, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You're a bit of a stand-up comedian too.
That's got to be some of my colleagues who are already using that joke. If they watch the movie.
All right, I'll ask you for your best tour guide joke afterwards. We'll get to that afterwards. All right, you can stew on that. All right, the merman. Yeah. Where do we find the merman?
So the merman is located close to Højbro Plads, which is one of the central squares in the city. It's actually right next to where many people they get on the boat tours from. That's one of the things that people do a lot here, the boat tours, because you want to see Copenhagen from the canals. So it's right next to where you get on the boat from. And it's this underwater statue of the merman and his 7 sons. And it's basically based off an old Danish folktale that was really passed on through generations, where there's this lady, she's walking along the beach, she sees some splashing in the water, and she thinks someone is drowning. So she jumped in to try and save this person who she thinks is drowning. And turns out it's a merman. And of course, they fell in love. And after this, she got pregnant for the first time. She ended up being pregnant 7 times in 7 years, giving birth to 7 sons. After 7 years, she was a little bit tired of her life, and she asked her husband for permission to go back up on land to see her friends and family. He gave her permission under the conditions that she would return before midnight. Did she return? No, she stayed. So what the statue represents is actually the merman and the 7 sons abandoned by the wife.
Wow.
Yeah, and you can like see them reaching up towards the surface, longing for the mother.
That's depressing.
It is very depressing. It's really cool.
I have okay, so yeah, the old folktale thing. It's funny because when I first went to an amusement park here in Norway, there was this attraction we went to, and it had like a movie as a part of it, and it was like this this story of like this kid trying to out eat a troll, and they were having this eating competition. I don't want to butcher it, but anyway, part of it was that he got the troll to like slit his own stomach open, so then like he could win the oatmeal eating contest, because then it would just, he convinced him that then it will just come out and you can eat as much as you want. I'm like, this is dark. This is very, this is like a children's, and so like, you know, now I'm hearing this is like the abandoned, I don't know if it's a Scandinavian thing because the sun goes away early and then it's like, it's just dark. But I mean, is there like some kind of dark undertones to these folk stories?
I think so, because the story you're referring to, I remember that one as well. And there are many of those stories that are just really dark. Also, if you read, you know, obviously you heard about Hans Christian Andersen and The Little Mermaid, and many people have watched the Disney version. But if you actually read his version, it is very dark and it is very brutal, and it's not like a happy ever after kind of thing. And that's how many of these old folk tales they were pretty dark, realistic.
Yeah. Realistic, I guess. Yeah.
Welcome to Scandinavia.
It's the I love it. It's the Danish way. All right.
You ready for the next one?
I am ready. We're coming into the home stretch.
Yeah. So the next one is one that two of the tour guides they suggested, and both of these tour guides they have little kids. So this is actually a playground. And even though I don't have any kids, I still really like this playground. It's really cool because it's actually a playground that is made to look like the Copenhagen Towers. So they've basically taken all of the iconic buildings of Copenhagen and they've made it into like a kid-sized version where you can play on them. So there'll be like a slide and there'll be like climbing walls and stuff like that. But you can actually see which buildings in Copenhagen it is. And it's really cool to see.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
What's the name of the playground?
So it's called Tårnlegepladsen, which is like the tower playground. And it's located in Fælledparken, which is also a beautiful park to go and check out. It's right next to our national stadium. And it's also right next to the main hospital of Copenhagen. So the park used to also be where the helicopters would land when they were going to the hospital. So it's quite a big park. It has like the largest skate park in Northern Europe as well. So you can go skating there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
If you want to do all your trick photography, that's the place.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's the place to go to. Yeah.
All right. We're down to the last three.
Okay. So the next one I have is another statue. But this one is a little bit different because technically the statue is not here right now. So back in 2017, it had been 100 years since Denmark sold the Danish West Indies to the US and they became US Virgin Islands. And sort of to commemorate that, a lot of things was going on in the city. And we also found out that we're getting a new statue in the city to sort of link back to our colonial past. And this statue was a statue called I Am Queen Mary. And it was the first ever statue of a black woman in Denmark. Now, I think it's like 96% of all statues in Denmark are of white men, mainly white men on horses. That's something that we like a lot. So having a black woman statue was very, very different. Now, most of these statues in Copenhagen and in Denmark are made out of bronze. Now, Jeanette Ehlers and Lavon Bell, who made the statue of I Am Queen Mary, they never got permission to make the statue out of bronze. They only got permission to make her out of plastic. So because she was only made out of plastic, it didn't take a lot of storms for her to be destroyed. And we got the statue in 2018 and we lost the statue in 2020. So now the only thing that's left from that statue is the foundation that she used to be sitting on. And the foundation is actually consisting of corals, which came from the Danish West Indies. And they are actual corals that were picked up by enslaved people back in the days. So they transported them up here and made them into the foundation of this statue of I Am Queen Mary. And just to explain a little bit about who Queen Mary was and why she's now sitting she was sitting in Copenhagen. She was leader of the rebellion called Fireburn, which was in the Danish West Indies. And it was basically after slavery was abolished. But, after slavery was abolished, the enslaved people didn't really have any good working conditions. They were basically still trapped and couldn't really make any decisions on their own. So, of course, there was a big rebellion against this, and Queen Mary was the leader of it. She was not a queen, but we called her Queen Mary. And she was captured and she was put in prison in Copenhagen, where she sat until 1905, where she was sent back to the West Indies, and she passed away in the West Indies back then. So they put up this massive, beautiful, beautiful statue, and now it's gone. There's a QR code, so you can scan that and make the statue appear, so you can see what it used to look like. And also, the good news is that they have raised enough money to build back up the statue, and they have gotten permission to make her out of bronze this time.
Wow. Amazing.
So she's coming back, and they're actually going to make two versions, or they're going to make two identical statues, one for the US Virgin Islands and one for Copenhagen, to link our joint history together.
Wow. What a story.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And that's why it's a foundation from a statue that you will literally just walk past without thinking about it. But if you know to look it up, you can actually get a little bit of a sense of why the foundation is still standing, and you can see what the statue used to look like. So I think that's a really cool hidden gem in the city center.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. All right, so should we move on to my foodie recommendations?
Yeah, we got two foodie recommendations to wrap it up. Yeah. All right.
Well, I mean, if I can hold it down to two, because now you're going to get me started.
Of course, but I mean, I don't think anybody listening is gonna be upset if you throw in a couple bonus recs.
That's true. I'm getting bad reviews from that.
Lay it on us.
So my favorite foodie recommendation for Copenhagen is something that's very, very Danish. And it's like a traditional Danish restaurant that's been in the same position for years, same people working in there. And the interior just feels like stepping back in time.
Oh, that's like all music to my ears. Yeah,
it's like one of these really traditional places where if you go there for lunch, you get the smørrebrød, which are these open-faced sandwiches that we are known for here in Denmark. Basically, this really dark bread, rye bread, butter on top, and some sort of topping, which can be salted herring, fish fillet, liver pate, or potatoes, and you eat it like an open-faced sandwich with a knife and fork. You don't pick it up American style. You need to eat it with a knife and fork. Along with the smørrebrød, you get snaps, and snaps is a traditional Danish liquor. And we usually drink this snaps while having the salted herring, because you have to give the fish something to swim in on the way down.
Good idea.
Yeah. Now, if you go there for dinner, you'll get more of a traditional Danish dinner experience, which is very much meat, sauce, and potatoes. Now, it can be all kinds of meat, but in general, we eat a lot of pork here. There's a big pig industry in Denmark. We export a lot of pork to all around the world, especially bacon. Danish bacon is famous all around the world. So, of course, we also eat a lot of pork here. And no matter where you are in Denmark, you're far away from the ocean, so we also eat a lot of seafood. But of course, all kinds of meat and that you can get in there. So you get like your meat, you get your potatoes, and you get some sort of sauce. And that's the dinner, the traditional Danish dinner that you want to have while you're here.
Yeah, awesome. What's the name of this restaurant again?
So this place is called Copenhagen Caféen. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Uh-oh. Yeah, you'll be sending us the list, so.
Yeah, I will. So it's basically Copenhagen Café, but in Danish.
Okay, yeah.
Copenhagen Caféen, yeah. It's located on a street called Badstuestræde, so that's even worse.
It sounds like the perfect place to go, though, to get the traditional scene and the traditional food.
It really is. And it's one of these places where we've always recommended this place because we like going there. That's one of the things about our company. We like recommending things that we like. So quite often when we go there, we'll run into our guests that we've had on tour during the day, which also means that the guests can see, okay, these guys are actually going there. They like it. So it's not just one of these tourist travel places.
It's legit, right?
It is. Yeah, you'll find us there.
That's always the question you want to ask. Like, where do you guys go to eat? Like, not the,
exactly.
Yeah. That's how you find out. That's great. All right. We got one more foodie rec, I think.
Yes. So another foodie recommendation is, of course, the bakeries. You have to go to a bakery while you're here. And I mean, you can pretty much go into any bakery and you'll have a great experience. All the bakeries here are pretty good. You go into 7-Eleven, have a pastry, it's still going to be good. But of course, I've got some favorite places, and I've actually got two favorite bakeries. One is a really old-fashioned, very traditional one, sort of in the same line as the restaurant recommendation I just gave. Actually, the restaurant gets their bread from this place, so they are sort of connected like that. And this is a place called St. Peter's Bakery, or in Danish, St. Peders Bager. And in there, you can get these traditional Danish pastries, lots of different ones. My favorite pastry to try from any bakery is the cinnamon snail. And the cinnamon snail has a lot of cinnamon, a lot of sugar, butter, all the good things. And then it's twirled like a snail. So it's not because there's any snails in there. It's just because of the shape of it. And each bakery will have their own signature version of the cinnamon snail, which is why, of course, I've got another cinnamon snail recommendation for you. And another place I really like going to is Heart Bakery. And Heart Bakery, so not like as in the heart you have inside your body, but the last name Hart, which is because the chef who started it is called Richard Hart. And Richard Hart used to work at Noma, which we mentioned earlier. And they have really awesome pastries in there. Now, although I do love the cinnamon snail, my favorite pastry at Hart Bakery has got to be the Spandauer. And the Spandauer is basically this traditional Danish pastry dough that is really sort of layered and laminated. And in the middle has this vanilla custard cream, which is really tasty. Yeah. I know, right?
I mean, the crowd's going wild right now. I'm just letting you know. Because you could go and easily find like the main things to do. I'm using air quotes, but you just came with all this wonderful stuff and these small attractions and big attractions, but in small, little different things. And it's so much great stuff here. So, this is plenty of off the beaten track stuff. And of course, you guys do free walking tours, right? How does that work you talk about the company a little bit, like if people are coming to visit, they want to do a tour with you guys. How do you make money as a company with free walking tours? Is probably a common question, but I know there's a lot of free walking tours around Europe, and that can be a very useful thing for travelers. Yeah, you want to just talk a bit about the company and where people can find you and what they can expect if they want to do one of your tours.
Yeah, so basically with the free walking tours, I know nowadays it's a very known sort of concept all around the world. I think the first free walking tour started popping up around, 12, 15 years ago, probably 15 years ago. And the concept is pretty simple. It's basically a way of getting people on tour, even though they might not be able to afford doing a private walking tour. So you don't pay anything up front, but when the tour is over, you can leave a donation directly with the tour guide, which also means that the tour guide is responsible for creating a good tour and making sure that everyone has a good time. Because of course, if we don't do our job good enough, we're not going to get paid. So we are on our top game every single day, trying to make sure we do the best kind of tour for the guests.
You're incentivized for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically people, they find us online on our website, and they can make a reservation. Before the pandemic, we were open to have anyone join. So even if you didn't have a reservation, you could just show up. But of course, since the pandemic, we've chosen to focus on having smaller groups. So we want to try and make sure we can control how large the groups they get, and that we can call in extra guides if we need to. So we do have a booking system where we ask people to book directly on our website.
Okay. And then you offer some other tours as well, right? Like paid tours and things.
So we got the 4 free walking tours covering different areas of the city. The Grand Tour is like the biggest tour that covers most of the inner city, all the big sites and the history, the food, the language, all the general things. And then there's the Classical Tour, which I like to call the most nerdy tour, which covers a lot of sort of deeper topic, like we talk about the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, we talk about King Christian IV, we talk about Niels Bohr, the physicist, and we finish at the food halls, which is one of my favorite places in town, Torvehallerne, which is also a really great recommendation. The Harbor Tour is our newest free walking tour, and the Harbor Tour actually takes you through that area that I mentioned earlier, Nyboder, the little yellow houses. And then after going through this very quiet neighborhood, it heads out to the Little Mermaid and sees the most busy part of town. And the final free walking tour we offer is the Christianshavn tour, taking you out to Christianshavn Island and finishing outside the Free State Christiania, which is this alternative hippie area. So these are like the free walking tours we offer. And in addition to the free walking tours, we've got our paid tours. We've got the foodie tour, which is our brand new tour that we started in June this year. I've been running it every Thursday since June, which has been so much fun. I've never eaten so many pastries in my life before, but I love it. And the other new tour that we offer at a cost is the Queer Copenhagen tour, focusing on the LGBTQ plus history of Copenhagen and Denmark. So we're up to 6 tours now, 4 free walking tours and 2 paid tours.
Amazing. And we'll link up, of course, Copenhagen Free Walking Tours.dk. Congrats. And like I said, so many cool things. And it's just so cool that people can show up and do some of these tours for free and, well, for free to begin with. And then obviously, please compensate your guides afterwards. We're going to encourage everybody to do that as you will on the ground. But having the tour company, I mean, how is that? Has that changed the way you view your country and its people in any ways?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How?
Yeah. So I think just meeting people from around the world and hearing their comments about my city has really changed how I see a lot of things. There's a lot of things that I've been taking for granted that I haven't really thought of, such as the free healthcare, the free education, the fact that we leave our babies in their strollers outside for when they're taking their naps and they're safe and they can do that. Like there's just all these things that for me is completely normal, but not necessarily normal around the world. So it definitely has changed the way I see the Danes and also Copenhagen and the city center.
Yeah, when I had my daughter and we were sticking her outside to sleep, I'm like, is this, are we cool here? Like, we're just going to stick her outside and let her, okay. I guess that's what we do now.
Maybe.
Of course, you guys are famous for being among the happiest people in the world. I don't know, this list comes out every month and it's not, or every year, excuse me. And it's not just like, some random like blogger throwing it together. It's like science based and, based on surveys and a whole bunch of different data. And yet, Scandinavian countries come up quite high, and Denmark, I think, has been number 1 quite a few times, at least up there in the top 3 or 5 consistently. I'm sure people ask you about this on your trips. Is that true? Like, what does happiness even mean? How do you feel about those rankings? How does it?
Yeah. So apparently we're no longer number 1. The Finns are more happy than us.
Like, how do you?
We're not very happy about.
Maybe that's what knocked you down the list, because you guys weren't happy about that. So that you lost some points there because you weren't happy for them.
Yeah, you're right. In general, it's the Scandinavian countries that are up there. And it's not necessarily walking around and seeing lots of smiley faces and happy people and so on. It's basically rated on everything you can't see. And some of these things that I'm referring to that you can't see relates back to taxes. We pay a lot of taxes in Scandinavia. I'm sure you're familiar with this already living in Norway. So we pay a lot of taxes here. Basically, the more you make, the more taxes you pay. And here in Denmark, it goes all the way up to 68% in taxes you can pay. And down to, I think it's 38% is the lowest. And basically these taxes that we pay, they're supposed to come back to us somehow. And that's how we have free education. You even get paid to study here. Once you turn 18, you get paid to go to school. So not only is your education for free, every single month you get money put into your account to help you get through your education. So again, what we talked about earlier, like keeping everyone on the same level, like no one is supposed to be really rich, no one is supposed to be really poor. We're supposed to be sort of equal. And that's a way of keeping people equal, that it's not just rich kids who can get an education, we can all get a good education. Hospital care is for free, medical care is for free. If you lose your place to live, you'll get somewhere else to live. If you lose your job, you'll still get money from the government. So there's this whole security net around us catching us if we fall. And that is basically why we're rated as happiest people on earth. Because if we fall, we know there's someone there to pick us back up again. And that keeps us happy.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's interesting to think about. Yeah, I think you summarized it in a great way right in the beginning, saying it's like the things you don't see. You're not walking around looking at these healthcare and these things when you visit. It's all the underlying infrastructure of the society, I guess, and the philosophy that sort of underpins that. the taxes can be a tough pill to swallow, but I'm an American originally, so I know, there's different perspectives coming at this, but do you feel like you get something in return in many ways? I don't know how it is for you, but like for me, I feel like they could make some more favorable laws in helping small businesses, because that is challenging when you're paying. It's hard to grow a business and then have employees and different things when you have to pay so much into, this is a whole other conversation, but that could be a challenge. I don't know how you feel about that, but.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are also challenges to the tax system. But the funny thing about Denmark is that even though people, they have different opinions about many different things, and when it comes to like politics and so on, most parties, they actually agree that we should have some sort of social security system like we have right now. Of course, some of them are suggesting we pay fewer taxes, and some of them are suggesting we're paying more taxes. But everyone agrees that we are actually supposed to sort of almost take care of each other on different levels. I think one of the things I've realized doing these tours is people, they started asking me, well, why haven't you taken advantage of the system? Why didn't you take a university degree? You could get it for free. And again, for me, it's not something that I should just take just because it's for free. Of course it's for free. Of course it's for free. Why shouldn't it be for free? And a very recent situation where I could really see how the taxes were coming back to me was obviously during the pandemic. Because of course, during the pandemic, we had to shut down. We could not do any tours. I think we slowly started after about a year, but the pandemic almost lasted until last summer, almost into this summer. And of course, at first, we were really nervous about what was going to happen. So all of us were actually able to eventually apply for compensation, and we got back 85% of our lost income. And basically what I had to do was prove how much money I had made in the previous years. And a really easy way of proving how much money you've made is by showing how much you paid in taxes. So it was a really sort of like recent example of how me paying my taxes eventually would come back to me and help me when I needed it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, if you're looking at the long view,
yeah,
year to year, it might be like a tough pill to swallow. But then if you're looking at the big picture and the support you get along the way in life.
When we get our paychecks, if you have like a normal job, not a freelance tour guide job, you get like your paycheck and you're like, okay, half of it is gone already. It's the taxes. Of course, you want to get that money for yourself. But eventually, you know that money is coming back to you somehow. Like when you're in the hospital, you don't need to pay any fees. You can just go there, you have your treatment, and then you leave again. So there is a lot of things that it sort of like makes it worth it when you do get that paycheck and you see half of it is gone already.
It also feels like part of the happiness may be rooted in trust that people have in the government to actually execute on the taxes they're given in a proper way. And trust among the citizens to kind of do the right thing. Generally speaking, I mean, every country has their, people that take advantage of things and all that sort of stuff, all the nuances there. But there is like an inherent trust. And, I found also one other thing about systems like this. This is like, again, the whole other part of the conversation, but some people might view it as restricting. And certainly it can feel that way when you're paying a lot of taxes, things like that. The actual like social support or social safety net, if you want to call it, can actually also be liberating if you look at it the right way in terms of like, oh, I could take a chance and I have the time or the ability to make art or make a business because I know like if I fall on my face, like I'm not going to lose everything type of thing. No society is perfect. So I think it's I just wanted to dig into that a little bit because I was curious what your thoughts were on that. The Danish concept of hygge you mentioned, like the sort of coziness, being inside, like you said, warm chocolate, just like embracing the coziness. I think people have this kind of like went viral in a way, you could say, which I think it's cool. Like I love these cultural concepts. I'm fascinated by them. And I'm just wondering, are there any other concepts that people should know about that maybe they'll get the press they deserve?
No, I think hygge is the big one. I know the people who started publishing books. There was like the book called The Little Book of Hygge, which went all around the world and was really popular. And I know they wanted to make like a second book. And their second book, they called it The Little Book of Lykke. And lykke is more like happiness. which is not like a Danish or Scandinavian concept, but of course it sort of links back to what we are just talking about, how we were some of the happiest people on earth. So maybe that's like another sort of another thing that could go viral around the world, the happiness.
Okay. We didn't really talk about Christiania. You mentioned like the free city of, what is the deal with that? Is it like some kind of area within Copenhagen that's not like bound to the laws of Denmark? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it is a little bit complicated with Christiania. So basically here in Copenhagen, we have an island called Christianshavn. And Christianshavn is an island that was built up as a fortification area. So if you look at a map, you'll see how it almost circles, half moons Copenhagen as a protection area. And this area, of course, was built up to be a fortification area. So, of course, there was a lot of military there. Many, many years. Actually, the Navy is still on parts of this island to this day. So we still have military presence out there to this day. Now, in the 50s and 60s, the military slowly started moving away from the big military barrack that was centralized on Christianshavn. And at this time, there was already a lot of people living on Christianshavn, but there was also a shortage of houses. So people, they basically started sneaking around, trying to find more space where they could live. And they found this abandoned military barrack, where there was like running water, there was electricity. They built a little playground for the kids, and they started camping in there. And by 71, they were living in there. And at first, the government, I think they expected them to move out at one point. So they just decided to call it a social experiment. And they kind of still call that to this day. It's a social experiment, basically what happens when you put all these people together, homeless people, squatters and hippies, to sort of build up their own society, their own little world. Now, one of the things that Christiania has been very known for many years is the drug market. And when I say drug market, at first it was both harder and softer drugs, but the harder drugs led to a bit of an issue with a lot of overdoses. And they shut down the harder drug market back in 78. So since then, it's only been the softer drugs like hash and weed and so on, which we are in Denmark, we are under Danish laws and rules and regulations, and you are not allowed to sell these drugs. But it was going on inside Christiania. We all knew that it was going on in there. There's a street in there called Pusher Street. That's how much everyone knows that it's going on in there. Now, having said that, things have been changing inside Christiania. And this year, on April 6th, they actually physically removed Pusher Street. They took it up cobblestone by cobblestone to remove the street and get rid of all the dealers in there. The main reason for this is that the dealers, when Christiania first started, it was these peaceful hippies who were smoking a little bit and they were selling a little bit and going traveling and coming back. Whereas nowadays, it was very much organized crimes by the gangs. And not just one gang, like multiple gangs who would sort of get into fights with each other. There'd be shootings. Last summer, or the previous summer, a tourist got shot inside Christiania, which is really what sort of led to this process of getting Pusher Street shut down. And then ultimately in April this year, they shut down Pusher Street. Even though Pusher Street is shut down now, people ask me all the time, is it safe to go there? And yes, it is safe. Like Copenhagen is one of the safest cities in the world, and Christiania is safe as well. It's an alternative neighborhood. There's a lot of people living in there. There's a lot of kids living there as well. But it is absolutely safe to walk through Christiania.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks for the breakdown on that. Did you think about your best joke as a tour guide? Did you come up with anything?
No, I've been too busy talking at you.
Fair enough. It is an interesting part of the job, though, having to like sort of entertain and disseminate information at the same time. It's a tough job. So it is. To me, it seems like you do it very well. So congratulations. And again, encourage people to check it out. I'm going to come to Copenhagen and do one of your tours. I'm putting that out there right now. Yes. So I'm going to request you, though. I don't know if you're out there on the street still doing the thing. Yeah, but you've been warned. Coming your way at some point.
Well, let me know when you're here, and we'll give you a tour.
Awesome. Thank you so very much for your time, and congrats on everything. And we'll drop all the relevant links in the show notes. And just appreciate your time today. Look forward to meeting in person.
Thank you so much, Jason. It was so nice to meet you.
Take care. There you have it. Thank you to Rikke Bisgaard-Svensen for stopping by the show. Of course, her website, Copenhagen Free Walking Tours.dk. What a list. That was fun. I'm totally stoked to go to that city now. I know I'm going to be getting there fairly soon. As I mentioned, I did go on the recent road trip to Denmark. I have gotten to interview many Danes. I had the first experience backpacking in Denmark on my first trip to Europe. I got to hang out with a Danish couple, my wife and I, when we were traveling in Vietnam. I've had a lot of wonderful interactions with the Danes over the years. And, you know, if you go, I'm sure you're going to feel more than welcome. So check it out if you haven't been. And let me know if you come over to this side of the pond, of course, or if you stop by anywhere near Norway or you're coming through Oslo. Get in touch. Always encourage listeners to reach out. By the way, jason@zerototravel.com is my email. You can get in touch over there. And of course, if you go to zerototravel.com/newsletter, that's the easiest way to keep in touch off the pod. I'll leave you with a quote in one moment. First, that fun fact I promised you at the beginning of the show. Here it is. Did you know that Copenhagen has more bicycles than people? The city has over 400 kilometers of bike lanes, and apparently during rush hour, there are more bikes on the roads than cars. Of course, you know, who can calculate that in real time, but I'm sure that's happened many times, and it must be due to the flatness of Denmark, right? I remember my first time there, just getting loaned a bike and exploring, and just so easy to pedal and get around. Really no mountains to conquer, no big hills to go up. So very bike friendly. If you like just cruising on a bike and exploring in that way, a wonderful way to see Copenhagen is to just grab a bike and do that. But do your free walking tour first. Another great way to get an overview on everything that's going on in the city. Okay, I'll leave you with a quote. This one from Søren Kierkegaard, the famous philosopher. I'm totally butchering that name, I'm sure. Anyway, he said, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. By the way, if you have a destination you want me to cover, just get in touch and let me know. Would love your recommendations. Thanks for listening. I'll let you go. Have a great one.
This podcast has been brought to you by zerototravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.